Phytobiomes is a term that refers to the whole system of a plant, plant-plant interactions, plant-microbe interactions, plant macroorganism interactions, and interactions of the plant with the soil and the environment. So the whole, understanding the whole system of what impacts a plant and its productivity and its quality. It's a holistic ecosystem level approach to understanding crops and their productivity. The meeting, which we titled Phytobiomes From Microbes to Plant Ecosystems, evolved from the concept of bringing fundamental scientists to the table to tell us about how to study the interactions between plants, microbes, and the environment, and as well as other organisms, plant-plant interactions. And then what we hope to do is to take the fundamental knowledge to the level of how might we translate that knowledge into improving crop productivity and plant production overall, and then to translating it into, for example, precision agriculture, where that would be the industrial side of things of how do we take it to the field and actually apply the knowledge to improve crop productivity. The goal of the Phytobiomes initiative, which is the initiative that drove the concept of this meeting forward, is to drive new funding into agricultural research. Many scientists sat down at a meeting organized by the American Phytopathological Society to try to come up with what is the next need to improve agriculture, to feed the world. How are we going to feed the 9 billion people down the road? And how are we going to deal with climate change issues? As the climate changes, how are we going to adapt our crops in order to produce crops under those conditions? And how are we going to improve the nutritional qualities of crops in face of drought stress or in face of the needs of the people? And what we came up with was we needed to take a more holistic approach to agriculture, an approach where we look at not just the plant and how it produces, but how it interacts with the microbes or the macroorganisms in the soil, the nematodes, viruses, and how that soil structure impacts the plant productivity, soil nutritional quality, and then also how the climate impacts it. Cold, heat, humidity, how all those things as a system impact the plant. And then how that plant impacts us is part of the whole story too. So we hope that this meeting will enable us to bring all those scientists working in diverse areas together to address the whole concept of improving crop productivity for the phytobiome. Part of the Phytobiomes initiative is the development of a Phytobiomes consortium. And that consortium will be an industry, public-private partnership. And so part of the funding for the consortium is being brought in through industry, but we hope that there will be matched through governmental funding as well as through foundations. We know that in order to solve this problem, it's going to take a great deal of new funding in agriculture. And so our needs are great, but as you know, federal funding is declining. So we need to drive new funding into this area. We can't take away from the funding that's already there. It has to be new funding. And it will have to be a private-public partnership because the translation will require industry inputs. Initially, we started within the US because we can affect policy in the US. But we have a lot of partners internationally. For example, in Europe, this area of research has been going strong for some time, different components of the area of research. So we see a lot of interest from Europe. In fact, I'll be attending a meeting in London in a few weeks. We also see interest from the international arena in the developing world, because the translation of this kind of science is what is really going to make a difference for those poor, resource-poor farmers in the developing world. We're expecting a really diverse group of scientists at the meeting, not only from an international perspective, because the topic is very pertinent and we have to feed the world, and we have 35 breeding cycles in order to do that, so we have to work fast. So we anticipate that there will be a lot of people from very diverse countries. We expect not only from the developed world, but from the developing world. We also expect a great diversity in the types of scientists that come to the meeting. Because it's such a broad topic, we're talking about plants, so we need plant physiologists, plant pathologists, plant biologists of all sorts, plant geneticists. But we're talking about, for example, high throughput phenotyping in order to measure the effects of the environment and the microbes on the plants and the macroorganisms on the plants. So there'll be engineers, we hope. There will be a lot of big data generated by this because we're taking very diverse kinds of science and trying to integrate the data. So there will be talks on how can we take that data and integrate it and pull out meaningful information that we can then translate to crop productivity. So very diverse types of scientists at the meeting. The human microbiome is influenced by what you eat. So the plant microbiome and the plant and the whole nutritional quality of the plant influences the human microbiome. So we're hoping that we get a few human microbiome people there. The other part of that is that if in studying the plant microbiome, we don't want to have to reinvent all the protocols and all the mistakes that were made in studying the human microbiome. So we've been talking to that community in a very large way about what worked for you, what didn't work for you, how can we take the information from the human microbiome to improve our studies of the plant microbiome. Keystone has always, traditionally has not handled a huge number of plant meetings, but I remember many years ago attending a plant immunity meeting that Keystone held, which was of course excellent. And I've now served on the scientific advisory board for several years, and the more I come to the scientific advisory board meetings, the more I learn about how plant sciences can be integrated with the human biology and how we can learn from each other and improve life in general.